Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Business Innovators Radio Blockchain Series. This is your host, as always, Matthew Loughran, Principal Consultant of Midtown West Media. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Drew Miller. Dr. Drew Miller is the CEO of Fortitude Ranch, an organization that's currently running an IMO, or an initial member offering, which is a bit of a twist in the ICO world. So very excited to hear from Drew here in a second, and welcome everyone to the show. So Drew, how are you doing today?
Very good. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. We have quite the wide variety here as well. So everything from tech enthusiasts to investors to blockchain folks to other CEOs that we've had on the show. So very excited to have you on. And you have a very unique background I want you to get into in a second as well. So we'd love to hear a little bit about yourself, your background, and really, what inspired you to, integrate blockchain into your business.
Sure. Well, I've been in business for 3 decades and consulting for the last decade, mainly doing financial analysis and business process redesign, working with enterprise resource planning systems, and a lot of business development projects. And I've been following the development of blockchain technology, but it really wasn't until I read William Mogyar's book, The Business Blockchain, that it convinced me that I really wanted to jump in, because he stressed that blockchain work is 80% business process redesign and only 20% information technology. So while I know the IT part of it well, it's really business process redesign and business development's been most of my career, so I decided I should jump in. And then I guess the other fit I saw is that with initial coin offerings, that's really investment banking work, which I've also done, and I was a vice president of planning and development at Securities America. So I also thought the investment aspect of blockchain was a good fit, so that's why we jumped in. Business Blockchain Consulting has quite a few associates of varied backgrounds. Some are more IT focused, some are more business process redesign focused like I am.
Yeah, definitely. So first off, you mentioned William's book, The Business Blockchain. I think it's a great prequel into the industry for anyone that's actually, looking to learn more. I think it does a great job in breaking things down. And it's funny you said that. You said that, and I pulled it off the shelf right next to me because it's sitting right there. So I think it's pretty standard for most folks to definitely go through that book. And again, you have quite the varied background with the consulting work and IT and investment banking. So we'd love to hear a little more about the actual organization as well in regards to Fortitude Ranch. Because I know you do run the consulting business, but this is also something a little bit different. Can you maybe share a little background about Fortitude?
Sure. Well, we're doing an initial coin offering or an initial member coin offering for Fortitude Ranch, and we're assisting a major supply chain software company now adding blockchain technology. But I'll focus on the Fortitude Ranch one because, as you pointed out, it is very, very unique, a lot of unusual aspects about it. And first of all, the company, it's a recreational and survival community. So we're pretty sure this is the first and only ICO that's ever been done for any company that's in what's called the prepper industry, people who are preparing for a loss of law and order, a collapse in economic activity, and the kind of situation where you need to be prepared knowing there's no police to help you and basically no law and order. So the Fortitude Ranch ICO, or initial member coin offering, we've been working on the past couple of months, and with your help as well, and we're getting it wrapped up here January 30. It's been going well so far.
Well, it's great to hear it's going well. And just so I understand and listeners understand, so Fortitude is a recreation facility. Can you describe kind of what does that mean, right? Is it a country club? Is it a outdoorsman place? I'm trying to get some color commentary to that. To me, that would be great.
Sure. Fortitude Ranch is both a recreational facility and a survival community, and the latter aspect of it, the survival community, is really the most important. So we attract preppers and people who realize that they need to be prepared for disaster but don't have the time to be preppers on their own. So you can come to our facilities. We have them now in West Virginia and Colorado, and you can come out and use our firing range, spend a night. Members get to stay for free for up to 15 days a year at any of our locations. So you can come out and have a good time and recreate, hunt, fish, that kind of thing. But the most important reason for Fortitude Ranch is that when there's a big disaster, and if you live in a city or a suburb and don't want to try to ride out a pandemic, which could last over a year in your basement hiding out, you'll come to our locations, and we basically will keep you safe for over a year. And we do this by having members who are also armed and trained and prepared to serve as guards. Now, we don't expect to get into fights, but we recognize that there's going to be, marauding groups of people running around in a pandemic trying to steal food and maybe do a lot worse. So we have walled facilities, a lot of buildings, so we can keep our members separated so they don't catch a virus from someone else in the group. And we have a lot of guards and guard stations. And when we see something that looks suspicious, people moving in the area, we sound the alarm. Our members rush to their assigned section of the wall with their weapons. And basically, if there's any marauder group, they're going to see us and say, no, thank you. I think I'll go raid the small house just over the ridge there where there's just a couple people. So that's basically what we're about for the bad times. But for the good times, we are a recreational facility where you can do a lot of fun vacation things.
I mean, this is definitely the first time I've heard, of an organization like this, integrating blockchain technology and doing an ICO, et cetera. How did, what type of void in the marketplace or opportunity what was the inspiration for Fortitude to start with?
Well, for the facility, people try to do this on their own, and it usually doesn't work because you got to get a big group together, and then there's going to be fighting over who wants to do what and trying to get agreement. The best survival facility in the world today is one called Survival Condo. They have facilities in former ICBM silos. They're very nice, very secure. The problem is it costs $1.5 to $3 million to buy a survival condo. And so Fortitude Ranch is designed for the middle class, so people without high incomes can afford to have a facility that'll keep them alive and safe. And then the fit with blockchain is twofold. First of all, of course, we're doing a cryptocurrency token issue to raise funds to expand from our 2 locations to hopefully a dozen nationwide. And the other fit is we have a member list that we have to send out to all our locations, and we like to update it daily as we get new members. And we do not want that list to be hacked. So as you know, anything that's normally on the internet is vulnerable. Even trying to send it can be risky. So we're going to use a private blockchain, probably Hyperledger, to keep our member database absolutely secure so only we can access it. Because we have member names and codes to get in. Because the deal is you could belong to Fortitude Ranch, West Virginia, but a pandemic could happen while you're out, and you may want to go to Colorado, and we hope to have locations in Wisconsin, Nevada after that. But you want to be able to go to the closest location in an emergency, take refuge there. Well, the people there aren't going to know you, so we need an absolutely secure database, and blockchain technology is ideal for that.
Can you also maybe touch base a little bit on maybe the size of the prepper market? Because from my exposure, I've seen there's different shows on television. It seems like I know there's a lot of in the survivalist, tons of websites that sell everything from food packaging and whatnot. Do you have an idea of what those numbers look like, just so the audience who maybe aren't as familiar with this marketplace can understand of the size of the market that you play in?
Sure. Well, the first rule of prepping is don't tell anyone you're a prepper. So okay. That's the truth, because if you're staying home, you don't want people to know you're a prepper because they'll come to your house begging for food or trying to steal food. And then it's just a cardinal rule of prepping is don't tell anyone you're a prepper. Keep it confidential. Most of our members are not. Pardon?
It's like Fight Club. First rule of Fight Club, there is no Fight Club. Right?
Oh, yes, that's correct. Well, that is the first rule of prepping. So the people you see on shows like Doomsday Preppers, they are not normal preppers. They tend to show kind of silly people, and the TV show tries to make them look ridiculous. But I estimate that up to 10% of the population has some degree of prepping that they do. But it's impossible to know how many there are because, again, people aren't going to identify themselves as preppers. But there's millions at least. You can look at the websites and tell that because of the daily traffic that you see, and there's so many prepper websites, as you mentioned. And there's a lot of sales of the services. A lot of people try to put a shelter in their backyard. We think that's a bad idea because I can tell if you've got a shelter in your backyard. Neighbors will know about it. There's air vents. There's ways to tell that there's someone back there. And all I have to do if I'm a bad guy is cover up your air vent, and you're got to be coming out of that shelter sooner or later. So you really need a big facility with a lot of guards in a remote area and defensible locations, and that's what we've got with Fortitude Ranch.
I really like maybe transition a little bit now into the initial member coin offering that you're running here. So first off, why go the initial member coin offering route or an ICO route? Why look for this type of funding mechanism for this project?
We like the ICO because we're a utility token, and we think utility tokens, and when I say we, I'm here referring to my blockchain consulting firm, we think utility tokens are best because you have real underlying value. The Kick utility token offering done middle of last year, that was a very successful one, but most token offerings, they don't have an really underlying value. It's maybe you have an interest in a startup software company doing some new blockchain application. Odds are it's not going to work. Bitcoin, as you know, is largely speculative in value. Yes, there's a blockchain underlying it, but, the blockchain isn't used much for real use of money. It's largely speculative value. But our token, we issue it right off the start with a 25% discount over our cash membership price. So it's got real value at the second it's issued. A second big difference is we're an established company. We are not a startup. We're in operation. We have 2 locations. We're expanding to more. So there's a lot less risk. And then our membership token gives you real value. So we're actually closer to what you'd normally see on a site like Kickstarter. But the problem with Kickstarter is it's small amounts of money, and you lose a lot of it, paying it to the company that owns those websites for Kickstarter campaigns. We need to raise millions of dollars because our facilities, cost over $1 million a piece. We want to do 12 nationwide. And then also we have a big fit with libertarians who tend to be cryptocurrency investors. We're preparing these facilities because government is irresponsible. They're not getting us prepared for a pandemic. They're not prepared to keep the electric system up if North Korea launches just a single nuclear weapon. That's all it would take to take out our electric system. The former CIA Director, Admiral Wolseley, warned about this last year. A lot of experts have testified about the threats that our government isn't preparing for, and we can't rely on our government. So that's kind of a theme of libertarians, and I'm a hardcore libertarian. And as you well know, a lot of the early and still big investors in cryptocurrency and backers of blockchain were libertarians. So that's kind of the other fit we saw with this, and it's been proven true. We have been getting a lot of good results with our ICO. We've sold over $400,000 so far, and there's a big fit between preppers tend to be libertarians, and blockchain and cryptocurrency enthusiasts tend to be libertarians.
No, I think that's a really good point as well, right? So the initial launch of Bitcoin, right, in regards to the financial collapse and so forth. So absolutely. And you mentioned some information there about government as well. I know you have a unique viewpoint from your previous posts held, with different agencies and whatnot. So yeah, quite interesting for the insight on that as well. In regards for the Fortitude Ranch and the IMO, what about the organization itself? Can you maybe talk about? I understand it's a utility token, but how does Fortitude make money? Let's talk about your revenue model, because obviously, if it's a utility token, it needs to be used, right, for it to actually be used in the system there in your ecosystem that you're building. So why don't you maybe talk about the organization itself and its revenue models and maybe expansion and kind of how that looks?
Sure. Well, we use a country club membership model, so you pay a upfront fee to join, and then like quarterly dues. So it's similar to joining a country club. So our membership token, you basically use our tokens whenever you're ready to buy memberships. So you may be waiting till your spouse is okay with doing this, or you may be waiting until we expand into our area. Or a lot of people are buying our tokens for investment reasons because they think our token will go up in value, and that's another very, very unique aspect of our token, and we designed it this way. In addition to that discounted 25% off the current prices you get by buying our token, there's another big, probably bigger advantage of our token, and that is it gets you priority to join Fortitude Ranch when a wait list forms. So, for example, when 60 Minutes, if they were to run an episode on that incident I just told you about that was in the newspapers last year, but 99% of Americans didn't pay attention to, if they covered what Admiral Woolsey, the former CIA director, said about how just one North Korean nuclear weapon detonating high in our atmosphere, i.e. it doesn't have to be accurate, if that went off, it would probably destroy most of our electric system. And I don't mean for days or weeks, I mean for months, over a year, potentially longer than that, because it takes out the transformers, those big, heavy pieces of equipment that are very expensive, very difficult to maintain. We don't produce many of them in the U.S. So the electric system down for a year, Admiral Woolsey estimated that you could lose up to 90% of the population because the economy isn't going to be operating. There's not going to be food manufacturing plants operating. Water systems won't even work in big cities. They rely on electric pumping systems. And then there'll be absolute loss of law and order, massive looting that'll turn into marauding and killing as people are starving to death and are out there going for food. So the former CIA director telling you that 90% of the population could potentially be lost from one North Korean nuclear detonation. Pandemics, a lot of experts say, are going to be the worst disaster we've ever faced, and experts have called pandemics inevitable, even saying we're overdue for one. And with our increased urbanization, they're going to be much, much worse than the 1918 flu that killed 50 to 100 million people. So you got these threats, and you need to be prepared. And right now, there aren't many people, less than 10% of the population who are preppers. But when the awareness grows of some of these threats, all of a sudden now we'll have thousands and potentially millions of people wanting to join Fortitude Ranch, and we won't have capacity. So the only way you're going to be able to join is if you have Fortitude tokens, because we give priority for membership to people who have purchased our tokens. So what's going to happen is if you don't have that token and you're living in a city or a suburb and you figure out there's a pandemic developing and I'm not going to survive it, you'll go to the cryptocurrency markets and try to buy Fortitude tokens, and you'll bid the price way, way up potentially. I mean, how much are you willing to spend to save your life and your family's life? And if you figure out, I'm not going to make it here surviving in this city during a pandemic that could last over a year, an electrical outage that could last over a year, I think you'll pay whatever it takes to buy those tokens. So we've got investors who have bought these thinking that, yep, sooner or later there's going to be a big scare, a big demand for survival condo and Fortitude Ranch and services like this. And so they'll bid the price of Fortitudes up.
Yeah, and that was, I think, quite the picture you painted in regards for, based on the ex-CIA director's information as well, and how if something like that does happen, that the true need for the currency really shoots through the roof. They then, again, right, get access to these locations that you're talking about and that you're expanding to as well. So if I think about it, you said 10% are currently preppers, and if I think about myself, I wouldn't be ready for a pandemic. Oh. I think we have. My wife's a nurse, so we have some first aid stuff, right? We have a go bag for earthquake stuff out here in California. But other than that, I don't have weeks of food on end or anything like that. So definitely I understand the need, especially after when you're describing situations that can easily happen as well. So quite interesting. In regards for post ICO, right? So right now you have 2 locations. The goal is to use some funds here from the ICO to open up some additional locations. Do you have ideas of where you might want those locations to be?
Well, our Fortitude token owners are going to get to vote on new locations. So if you buy the tokens, you have some impact there. And I shouldn't say vote. I should say we'll poll them on their members. We're being very careful to make sure that our token is a pure utility token with no equity features. So there's no profit share, there's no equity voting rights, because the SEC, as you are well aware, is going to clamp down on ICOs that really are like equity. So we are not like equity. We'll be polling our token owners to ask where they want to expand. Our current guesstimate is that we'll be going to Wisconsin third to serve the Chicago market, and then Nevada fourth to serve California and the West Coast. And then after that, we'll keep expanding. But as I said, our token members will poll them and ask, hey, where would you like us to go next? Tennessee or Texas, and kind of go off of that.
And I'd really like to hear from you as well. Obviously, you've been in the ICO now for a little bit. You got a good chunk of funding in so far. Have investors been within certain regions of the country? Have they been international? I'm just kind of get a sense of who's currently been jumping into the ICO so far.
Overwhelmingly U.S. And normally if someone buys your cryptocurrency with Ether or with Bitcoin, you have no idea who they are or where they're from. In our case, most of our people have been buying with dollars. Up front, we gave people the option you can buy with Ether, we're an ERC20 standard token, or you can buy with dollars. But after we launched on December 7th, as you know, Ether price went way up along with Bitcoin. So it's much more economical to buy with dollars. So most people are buying with dollars on our website via PayPal. So I do have their email address and their location and all that. That's why I can tell you that it's overwhelmingly U.S. people buying.
Gotcha. Okay,
some international, but mainly U.S.
And obviously, when you look and you're launching an organization, you're typically going to have a couple challenges you're going to face. So I would maybe love to hear, maybe if you can share, because again, all right, some of our listeners are also in the process, right, of getting their ICO started or getting their traditional business launched. What are some of the challenges that you're currently facing, and how do you anticipate on being able to overcome those?
Well, we've got it a lot easier. Again, we're an established business, so we're already up and running, and we're a fairly simple business. So it's not like the typical ICO where I'm starting up a company to develop software, and it's probably years before I'll have anything ready, and odds of success aren't very good. So our challenges really aren't that big. We're mainly looking at just answering questions from the ICO as they come in, and then picking out new sites as we expand. So not really any big challenges. I mean, the biggest threat that we worry about is always, I think for any business, it's always lawyers, politicians, and regulations. Are they going to throw new regulations at you? Right now, there aren't regulations that a survival company that needs to deal with right now, but I'm always very suspicious of government and regulators and bureaucrats, and oftentimes the lawyers who benefit from laws are politicians who pass the laws, are friends of them. It's the biggest occupation of people in Congresses, both at the national level and at the state level, are lawyers. And so they get in and pass laws and regulations that help their legal business. So it's one of the reasons we're overregulated. So right now we're in locations where we don't have to deal with building codes, and we try to avoid big government states. You mentioned, I told you I'm going to go to Nevada probably to expand. I don't think I would ever locate in California or New York because those are big government states where we're more likely to run into someone who's going to try to regulate us, and we want to avoid that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a couple, unique challenges to yourself, but some very specific challenges to anybody that's, in the ICO world at least, right? So we're consistently hearing questions about, legal and compliance, as well as, regulations, both, in the U.S. as well as on a global scale. Obviously, there's some quality attorneys out there as well that have just dove in full force onto the cryptocurrency side of things, and making that their full occupation as well. So there are some good outlets out there as well. So thank you for again sharing that. And again, with our listeners, would love to hear as well. So say Fortitude Ranch a couple of years from now, right? What's that ideal vision? How does it look? And really, how did the ICO, or in your case, the IMO, have an impact on that?
Well, we're hoping to raise awareness with our ICO of the need to be prepared. I talk in our white paper at length about the bioengineered viral pandemic threat. I wrote an article on it that was published in the American Interest about a year ago. People have testified before Congress, and the problem is CRISPR, a lot of advances in biotechnology are great. They're going to be used for wonderful things. The problem is that terrorists in North Korea and Iran, Al-Qaeda, groups like that are going to take that technology and use it for bad purposes, and we're aware of that. And the problem with biotechnology in particular is that a single individual can actually take something like avian flu and just out of luck, trying a lot of different experiments with it, or by design, if they happen to have biology background, can try to make avian flu human-to-human transmissible. And there have been articles published on how to do that without going high-tech threats. There was a big controversy years ago where the federal government did step in after some scientists were going to publish an article on how to make avian flu human-to-human transmissible. And they blocked the article for a few months. Ultimately, they decided to let them publish it because the information and knowledge was already out there. And so people are aware of that, and bad people are aware of it as well. And I think it's inevitable that there's going to be a bioengineered viral pandemic. The term overdue is what a lot of scientists and biologists say about natural pandemics, and we are just absolutely not prepared to deal with that. The federal guidelines on having a couple days of food remain laughable. If you ask preppers about the federal government guidelines to be prepared for a pandemic, you're going to get disgusted responses because a pandemic lasts for over a year, and you can't assume, as the government does, that they have to be politically correct. So they assume that, people will be well behaved, no one's going to be lawless. And that's nonsense. We're well aware that supermarkets will be emptied in the first hours after news of a pandemic starts spreading. A lot of people don't even have 3 days of food in their home. And people are going to be taking advantage of the situation immediately because who are going to be the biggest people harmed by a pandemic? It's going to be first responders, the police, the fire, the hospital workers. So they're going to lose a lot of casualties initially. And a lot of them are fortunately going to figure out that, hey, if I keep doing my police work and keep being in contact with sick people, I'm going to bring the virus home to kill my family. So a lot of policemen are going to say, that's it, I quit. And those that are still on duty, their priority is going to be protecting hospitals, protecting government leaders, so there isn't going to be any police force in your neighborhood. So when a marauder or a gang or just a neighbor who's panicked that his family is going to die starts running around with a gun to steal food, you're on your own. And preppers realize that, but the vast majority of the population doesn't pay any attention to this, and unfortunately it may be too late before they discover that you need something like Fortitude Ranch if you're going to make it through not just a pandemic, but a long-term electrical outage, the aftermath of a supervolcano explosion or an asteroid impact, because we just don't have the ability to handle big disasters. I'm not blaming police. It's just the reality of the fact they can't handle major disasters. There's just not enough of them.
Yeah, I think you may bring up a great point there too, right? So it's not that, the major disaster, I think, just cripples so many resources. And when there's a breakdown within that resource chain, and that's when those situations you're describing would really come to fruition.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of sources. We actually track 45 different what we call trigger events. I mean, Elon Musk, if you listen to him, it seems like every month he's out there warning that artificial intelligence is going to be a disaster for us. And there's all kinds of other threats that you need to be aware of. The nano dangers, nanotechnology. There's just so many new technologies developing. And the nuclear proliferation. We're still using nuclear technology that dates from World War II. Well, there's been advances in how to enrich uranium. There's going to be more advances in how to enrich nuclear materials. And so the nuclear proliferation is going to get worse, potentially to the point that, again, a small terrorist group could do it. And so there's just constant advances in technology, and there was a good book out recently called The Dark Side of Technology, pointing out that every advance in technology is misused. The problem is the capability of new technology keeps getting so worse that it gets to the point where individuals can do bad things with them.
And Drew, this has definitely been enlightening, to say the least, I'd say. Again, the eye-opening, I think, is probably the correct word to describe the conversation so far today. And obviously, you're in the ICO right now. If our listeners want to learn more about Fortitude Ranch and participate and get more information, read that white paper that you're discussing, where a lot of this information is outlined as well. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, the website, FortitudeRanch.com, has all the information, downloads for the white paper, videos explaining both Fortitude Ranch and our token offering. And the ICO ends January 30, so I hope people hear this before January 30, but we will be offering Fortitude tokens for sale from the company holdings of Fortitudes, but they're going to be priced a lot higher than the discounted price that's available now.
Okay, great. So we'll make sure that we get people out to fortituderanch.com to learn some more about the Fortitude Ranch ICO. Again, they can learn a little bit more about you and your background, and you have a bio on that website as well. And there's some really cool pictures, of the actual facility itself, of one of the facilities. So, Drew, again, a pleasure for you to have some time today to jump on the show. I know you're in the final week here of the ICO itself, so I know you're quite busy, but very thankful for sharing your information here with my listeners, and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your show, and I'm glad that more people are learning about blockchain and ICOs.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on, Drew.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.